Postcards from a Dying World, the podcast. For more than a decade, I've reviewed over 1,000 books that are mostly science fiction, horror, and bizarro. This feed will feature bonus audio I have produced over the years, as well as a monthly digest of reviews based on what I've read each month, plus the occasional bonus material about my own fiction. Thanks for listening.
Hello, beaming to you from 4 time zones. That's right, 4 time zones to your ear hole. I have 4 of the modern masters of horror fiction joining me tonight. We're going to really dive into one of our favorite subjects tonight, and we can't wait to really talk about it. You get a little bit of a clue going on there in the background here, but I'm going to start by going around and introducing everyone, and they can tell you who they are and why they should be on your radar. Josh Malerman, why don't you start?
Hi, I'm Josh, and I'm Josh Malerman. I'm author of Birdbox and others, but that's not really the reason we're here tonight. I'm from the Detroit area, as you can tell. What's behind me? The Bad Boys, who look freaking awesome. We had Rodman before. I met Dennis Rodman before, like in his rookie year. I met him at a restaurant, and he was like a giant to me, And so we knew Rodman before the rest of the world, and that's the thing I'm proud of.
All right, and below you on the screen, if you're watching on YouTube, is Mr. Paul Tremblay. Paul, tell them who you are.
Hey, I'm Paul Tremblay. I've written A Headful of Ghosts and a few other things. I know, lifelong. I've lived in and around Boston my whole life, so yeah, I'm an obnoxious Boston sports fan. I failed in my goal to be Larry Bird as a child.
Hoosier.
I don't know. We might have like similar nose. And actually, I mimic his shooting style. I'm not gonna say I shoot as good as Larry Bird, but pretty close. Yeah.
All right.
Fuck those bad boys. Those Pistons out of here.
Hey, we'll get back to that. Steven.
Yeah, I'm Stephen Graham Jones. Let's see, I've done The Only Good Indians and more books. The Only Good Indians has a lot of basketball in it. That's why I talked about that one.
I'm jealous.
I didn't meet Dennis Rodman once, but I was in Vegas many years ago, started moving through a packed casino, and the crowd spit me up, and I was face to face with Dennis Rodman leaning against the wall. And you're right, Josh, he was big, tall dude. Yeah.
All right, so one of these things is not like the other. Everybody else has like a bunch of awards and best-selling books. I'm doing my best. I'm working on it. However, my name is David Agranoff. I'm the host of this podcast, so hopefully you'll know me. But I am the author of Goddamn Killing Machines and the Splatterpunk Award nominated Ring of Fire. I am from Indiana, so I'm a huge Indiana college basketball fan. And right on Josh's shoulder is one of my all-time favorite players, Isaiah Thomas, who is a Hoosier. And we'll talk about that a little bit later. But
he was a really good executive for the Knicks, wasn't he? Sorry.
Not very good. No, we don't talk about that. However, after 7 years of living in Portland, I am a converted lifelong now Portland Trailblazer fan, thanks to one Brandon Roy, who brought me into the fold. And but we'll get a little bit more into our basketball story. So let's start there. How did you first fall in love with basketball, Josh Malerman?
My dad played. He played even for college. He got on the college team at Wayne State University here in Detroit, and he was crazy about it. I mean, he played, and he's 78, and he was playing until about 2 years ago. And he was nuts about it. And me and my 2 brothers became like instant fans with him. We had a season, because my dad had season tickets, where we went to all 41 home games of the Pistons. I think this was 89, the first year that they won it. So I was 14, all 41 games, and then the playoffs as well. Yeah. So from the word go, but when I was first getting into it, this must have been, I was born in 75. So when I was around like 10, I didn't hate Magic and Bird. I freaking loved them. And I also loved both of them, which is a weird, I'm sure to Paul, that's a really strange concept. But to me as an outsider, these two dudes, it was like watching like a comic book rivalry, you know, like Magneto and Professor X or something. It was like, and I don't know who's who, probably Bird would be Magneto, but it was like, there was something so odd that we were all aware that we were watching one of the great rivalries of all time. So I'm a Pistons fan for sure, but I completely respected the hell out of those guys. And also Magic Johnson went to Michigan State, which is where I went. Bam.
All right, Paul Tremblay, what's your basketball origin story?
Geez, I can't remember. I mean, it was the 80 Celtics, 81 was their first title with Bird. The first title I was aware of. I don't know, my family were big into watching sports. Every Sunday afternoon, we'd go to my grandparents' house, and it was, Red Sox usually, but, when the Celtics were good, this area just went sort of crazy for the Celtics. I wish I had season tickets. I mean, for us, it was, I think I got to see the Celtics at the old Boston Garden maybe like 2 or 3 times. And that place, there were tons of what they would call obstructed view seats.
Yeah.
So like my first game was at obstructed view. I mean, it wasn't terrible, but the view was obstructed because the overhang cut off just the scoreboard, which wasn't terrible. Like it didn't actually cut off a view of the court. But there were seats, like you could see a seat that was behind like a metal stanchion. It was just a crazy old building. Weirdly, I mean, I do understand a little. My brother, who's 5 years younger, he, just because he was a little brother, he had to do everything to make me angry. He decided his favorite team was the Lakers.
Oh,
so
wow.
we always had Lakers Celtics fights. Him and his Lakers shirts. As an adult though, I mean, I would say I never hated Magic. I think Magic's the best basketball player of all time. I put him ahead of Jordan.
Dude,
That's a
so
whole
do I.
other podcast.
Yeah.
But-
No, man. So do I. Sorry to interrupt you, but all right.
That
go
is
on.
not another podcast. That is another
Yeah.
moment in this podcast. All right. Is it okay? I'll move on to Stephen. We'll come back to. We'll get more stories from you, Paul. Stephen. Now, and by the way, Josh has a basketball book coming out, which puts pressure on Paul and I to write basketball books.
Yeah, it sure
That's what I'm
does.
saying. So, Stephen,
There's a very small basketball scene in the Paul Bearers Club. So it definitely does not qualify as a basketball book, but there is a small basketball scene.
all right. So that puts pressure on me. I got it. Stephen, how did you get into basketball?
My basketball story, I guess it starts in 7th grade when we had tryouts to make the basketball team. I think only 15 of us could make it or something. And I went down and shot. And then coach selected 15 people and said, the rest of y'all go down to the other end of the court. And I didn't get picked. I had to go down to the other end of the court. And I remember I was down there shooting, trying to get better to get good enough to get on the team. And I was just crying. I couldn't help crying. I was just crying and shooting. And one of my friends came and said, it's all right. And it wasn't all right. That's where it starts for me, I guess. But then I got better in 9th grade. I started out on JV, and then I got put up to varsity when the JV season went over. And we went, and the varsity team was going to district or regionals. I forget how they all stack up. And I played all through high school. I was actually on a team that went undefeated in one state, but I got kicked off the team about halfway through the season because coach said he brought me into his office and he said, we have a rule in this team that for every truancy you have to miss a game. And so I did a little quick math and I figured I wouldn't be able to play for like 3 years. So I just quit, never went back. And so I'd go to the Air Force Academy. I was living in Colorado at the time, and I'd play with the cadets, and man, that was some banging basketball. You get beat up on playing with them big dudes. But as for watching ball, I never watched a single basketball game on television anyways, definitely not in real life. But I never watched a game until it was probably 1995, the playoffs. I was teaching freshman comp and grading student papers, and my neighbor, our walls were so thin in my efficiency apartment that I had to tune my TV to whatever he was watching so our sounds wouldn't like fight with each other. And he was watching basketball, and so I found the station and put it on his thing. And so basketball was on while I was grading, and I kind of got into this whole Michael Jordan thing, and I've been watching ever since, I guess.
No, that's awesome. I can't believe you played but didn't watch.
Watch it. I'm still not a good basketball watcher. I still prefer highlights. It's really torturous for me to actually sit through a game and watch like 2.5 hours of my life away sitting there. I'm not good at it at all.
Hey,
Wow,
well,
that was-
my
Yeah.
father, who was a political science professor, taught me to watch sports with a book in my lap.
Yeah.
And
I do the same.
yeah, and if I didn't do that, I don't think I could watch sports. But
Yeah.
I always watch with a book in my lap. In fact, I've read all 3 of your works like at one time
Nice.
watching Trailblazer games. So I know
Nice.
that's the thing. But
Those are all
Well,
making
I'll-
me feel lazy because I literally just watch the entire game. I just sit there every second.
No, I don't worry. I watch a lot too. And I would say, Steven, man, I wish I was on the varsity team, but I was also like, I'm 6'4", 200 now. When I was a senior in high school, I was 6 foot 140 with a curved spine.
Wow.
And so I got cut from the team. And then right after high school, I had back surgery. After back surgery, I was 6'3". And then it took a year of recovery. I was 6'4". And that year, once I was fully recovered, I played in a summer league with all the varsity guys. And it didn't last long because I hurt my ankle, of course. But like the first game with them, I scored 37. And they were like, hey, where did all this come from? And I was like, yeah,
Nice.
yeah.
yeah, take that.
That was my
Well,
one
you-
moment of glory on the court.
But
Well-
you're tall and you're tall and you got that high release, so you can get your shot off. That's
Yeah,
nice.
well, because I was always small and I had a decent release. But then after surgery, it's like, oh, now I can shoot over people. Where was that?
is
in high
super
school.
Interesting. This is also interesting real fast. I got cut all 4 years. I tried out all 4 years of high school. I remember going in senior year and being like, what the fuck am I doing right now? I'm going to do this again right now. Like by senior year, there was no question you didn't have a shot. Like the team's already set. Everyone knows who plays and who doesn't. I'm like, I'm fucking trying out again. That's interesting to me that all 3 of us were cut. Or I guess, Steven, you eventually made it, but that all 3 of us were at least cut at some point. That's interesting to me. I don't know what that means yet, but I like it.
Now, I'm a hooper
oh,
today, but I didn't, when I was in high school, I was so punk rock that I didn't play sports, right? I quit playing. I shot around with my dad and played sports when I was really young, but by high school, I was like way too punk rock, right, for basketball. And then when I got older, I play basketball 3 times a week in my neighborhood.
Wow.
And I like to think I'm a catch and shoot guy. But every once in a while I fool people and take it to the rack, but mostly, in fact, last night I got 2 game tying threes at a crucial point. So I like to think my shooting form is good.
But everybody else is 12 years old. And
Exactly.
Josh, I like to imagine you at tryouts as the cable guy.
Yeah,
As
pretty
the
much.
cable guy basketball episode. Just doing the sprints to warm up. Sweatbands. That'd be awesome.
Now, just real quickly, my basketball story is that I'm from Bloomington, Indiana. My dad was a professor at Indiana University. And the year when I was, my first grade year was the year my dad got the job at IU. And we've had season tickets ever since that year, which was 1981, which of course was the year that Isaiah Thomas led us all the way to the championship. So I was spoiled because I thought because I was like, first grade, I thought we're going to win it all every year. We only won it one more time in 1987 when I was in 7th grade. But my family are still season ticket holders for IU basketball. My sister inherited my dad's tickets. And so Indiana basketball is a big deal for me. How I got into the Trailblazers was when I was teaching at a high school in Portland. The Blazers put in a new floor, gym floor for our school, and they came and did a preseason scrimmage with the team that at the time had Brandon Roy and Nick Batoon and LaMarcus Aldridge were rookies on the team.
Yeah.
And they came and did a scrimmage on the floor, and I just watched Brandon Roy cook in this scrimmage, and I was like, hey, this is my local team. I should follow them. And then, now I'm cursed to watch them fall to the Warriors all the time and now the Lakers. But whatever. Anyways, I have hope this year. New coach and all. But
wait, not just a new coach, a new.
I know, a Piston.
Very
Okay,
precious
okay.
new coach. Yeah, Billups is the bomb, man. I'll bet you he does good with you guys. I'll bet
I'm
you.
hoping.
Yeah, that's a good
Yeah,
hire. But I mean,
Chauncey
Lakers,
Billups?
Suns, Jazz. Yeah.
Yeah.
Chauncey Billups is the
Wow.
coach of the
Wow.
Trailblazers.
Yeah, and well, yeah, we'll get more into this season in a little bit, but I want to go around now and kind of talk about our favorite players and who are the ones that we just really love to watch play and who, you know, we really love to watch cook, because I think that's so much of the part of loving basketball and watching basketball is the players that you get hooked on and you love to watch play. And we did a little bit of that now, and we had the opinion. Well, anyways, Josh, who's your favorite player of all time?
I think it's Magic. I watched on ESPN Classics. I think it was Western Conference Final game between the Lakers and Rockets. I think it was 85. I don't remember what year. This is not that long ago that I watched this. And Magic literally was responsible for every single play that you saw. I mean, like absolutely orchestrated the entire game. And at the end, he had shot the ball 11 times. That's it, 11 times. He was like 5 for 11. And I was like, I can't believe this stat that I'm reading right now. I just watched this whole game. First of all, I can't believe I watched the whole game from 85, but this dude owned that game but by sharing it, which is so Magic. And I see some of Steph Curry in him in terms of like playing with joy versus the playing with anger, like Jordan and maybe Kobe Bryant has that as well, some of that or a lot of that. And Magic to me, like I just related right away. Here's a guy that
He's
like
smiling when he does it. Yeah.
But it's like it's kind of like that genius. Do you like the playful genius, you know, like Paul McCartney, or do you like the tortured genius like John Lennon, or do you love them both like we all do? But Magic was like a playful genius, and so he right away struck a chord with me. Him, Steph Curry. I love like team players that play with that kind of like energy.
Man, what about those of us who love Ringo, man?
Say it again.
Those of us who love Ringo, man.
Oh yeah, what about those who love Ringo? That's like the Rodman fan. No, I don't know.
Well, and I forgot one part of my basketball story that I really do have to mention, and I'm sorry because this is just too cool. My grandfather was a Minneapolis Lakers season ticket holder.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. And my dad, who
Wait.
passed away at 83 just a few years ago, would go to games with him when he was a kid, right? When he was a little kid. And my uncle Ed and my grandfather were at the game against the Fort Wayne Pistons that caused the shot clock to exist, because the Minneapolis Lakers beat the Fort Wayne Pistons 19-17 because of the control ball. And
right, because once they took the lead, they could just dribble out the rest of the time. And,
right.
And that, yeah. So wait, real fast. Does that mean that your grandfather saw Mikan play? Does that like saw George Mikan play?
Yeah, I mean, he was a Minneapolis Lakers season ticket holder, and
That's
like for years.
Crazy, man. That's like holy grail shit right there.
Yeah, well, and this was before basketball was really like a popular sport. So there were times, according to my uncle, when he would tell me stories about it, that, you know, there were times where the gym was like a quarter full, you know, that looked like high school games today.
Probably smelled like cigar smoke and
right. Yeah. But it's just crazy to think about like the 100-year history of this game too. It's like one of the things that I like to think about, being a person from Indiana too. Like a lot of people don't realize that the Final Four and the whole NCAA championship started as an Indiana State championship. That model of like having the brackets and having the things, and it all started at Hinkle Fieldhouse, where Butler University plays today. You know, so
I didn't know that. That's sweet.
Yeah, I just wanted to put out there because Indiana is so important to the history, even though as a Canadian from Massachusetts. Or in Massachusetts, who invented the game, a Canadian visiting into Massachusetts invented the game, but then he had a protege who took it to Indiana, and Indiana's where it blew up. So just putting that out there. Paul Tremblay, your favorite player?
Geez, well, I mean, I guess the obvious one's Larry Bird, as I've got a few things here, but actually when I was a kid, you know, I mentioned, where's Larry? There he is. You know, when I first got into the team, again, like 10, 11, 12, my favorite player was Robert Parrish. So he still just holds a soft spot in my heart. But yeah, those 80 Celtics teams, it's hard to pick a favorite out of McHale, Bird, Parrish, Dennis Johnson, all of them. I don't know. So it's been a long time since I feel like I've had a favorite player. It's been more like either teams or, I really enjoy watching, the Final Four. I used to watch a lot more of college basketball. I mean, I chose the college I went to because I liked, Rick Pitino took the 87 Providence College Friars to the Final Four. So I was like, oh, I'm going to apply that school. They have a good basketball team. Yeah. So from there, I would just add about Magic, besides his 1985 year, as a rookie in the clinching game of the NBA Finals, Jabbar was hurt and he played center and scored 42 points. So, I mean, the dude could play any position. He had one less championship than Michael did. He had 5, but he went to another 4 or 5.
Yeah, he went to 9. Yeah,
went to 9 total.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. Jordan never won until those guys were old and done.
Right.
And there was, and when Jordan was sort of at his peak, that's when the league expanded too. They expanded by like 4 or 5 teams, so it just totally diluted the talent.
Totally, man.
I also think David Stern was dirty and that they weren't above fixing games.
Wow,
anyway,
wait,
I just don't
might
like
be.
that.
Ooh, Tremblay bringing the hot takes.
Holy shit.
I know, so as for like contemporary favorites, I definitely, like Steph. But last year, I don't know, I really enjoyed watching both the Suns and the Bucks. I mean, it's hard not to be a fan of Giannis, sort of just like the team first. And I loved after he won, he said, oh, it'd be easy to go and make a super team. I wanted to stay and do it here. I don't know, I think that's kind of badass.
And as we're recording, he is feasting on the Nets right now.
Love it.
Yeah, they had a 20-point lead the last time I looked. Yeah, Giannis is great and super fun to watch. And yeah, I super respect him staying home as a fan of a small market team. I think that's big and important. Now, one of the reasons why I like talking about basketball.
We didn't get Steven's favorite basketball player.
Yes, I know. Well, no, that's what I was going to get to.
Okay.
Is one of the reasons why I like talking to Steven so much about basketball is because Steven gets very poetic talking about certain players. And off recording, when we recorded the last podcast, we talked a lot about basketball. That's one of the reasons why I knew he'd bring it. And I'm thinking you're going to want to talk about Tracy Mcgrady, but there's got to be others. Who's your absolute favorite?
Yeah, it's probably Tracy Mcgrady. I love to go on YouTube and watch clips of him playing. He was just poetry, I think. He had such control. In his prime, he could do things that I don't think many other players could ever do. But and I guess to lose all the credit I have basketball wise, you can probably guess my favorite players because I've never watched a college basketball game. I went to one once, but I never watched it on TV because I think college basketball is a coach's game, whereas NBA ball is a player's game, and so there's a lot of teamwork at the college level, but I'm like, I don't want teamwork. I want highlights. I want people who are going to make bad decisions. Like J.R. Smith, every time J.R. Smith gets a ball, I'm like, yes, something's going to happen. I don't care which way the game goes. That never matters to me. I just want to see somebody jack up a ball from impossible place, and I want to see their eyes and their heart waiting for that ball to go in, the way they know it's going to go in, that's what I love. But if I had to choose between Michael and Kobe, I would choose Kobe, I think, because Kobe has more of that than Michael did. Michael, he would always make the tactical decision, I think. He would know he could do whatever he wanted, but it would be a tactical decision. Kobe would get stars in his eyes and think, this is it. This is going to go down in the books, and he would jack up something or try some, double spin. So I like the highlights,
Well, that's interesting because when you're playing in a game and you got somebody like, there's that mixed feeling of like, fuck, I'm wide open, but holy shit, that guy's cooking. And I just last night played with a guy who was totally cooking, and I was just like, just go, bud, just go. And
like Tracy Mcgrady in those 13 seconds where he scored so many points, man, that is some of the most amazing few seconds of ball I've ever seen, man.
Yeah.
Reggie Miller had Reggie, are you Dave, are you not a Pacers fan?
No, I was never a Pacers fan because when I was growing up, they stunk. And they were kind of like a bad organization at the time in the 80s. And my father still to this day, for the exact reason that Steven doesn't like college basketball. My dad is a coach's basketball guy, and he likes fundamentals for the same reason my father, right up until when he passed away, was a devotee of going to the IU women's games. He went to all the IU women's games because he liked watching fundamental basketball. Right?
Oh, I know a dude like that. My dad's best friend. He's passed away now, but that dude, he loved the fundamentals of the women's game. He would talk to me about that all the time. He's like the bounce pass and the pick and roll and the the box out, and he was like, you want to get better at basketball, you watch the women's game.
Yeah, my dad has said similar things to me. And one of the reasons why he always said that he liked going to the women's game. Well, one thing, he liked that there was less of a crowd and you could sit closer. But not that our season tickets were that bad. I will say another thing that I was there for was we were at the game where Bob Knight threw the chair across the floor.
Oh, wow.
I was,
really?
Yeah. It was against Purdue, and most people don't realize it was like very early in the game.
My dad was at the game where Ron Artest ran into the stands.
Oh,
My dad and my brother. And I
your
watched
dad, your dad threw the popcorn?
Yeah, no, my dad, he's the guy who threw the drink. He's the dude.
Yeah.
No. But I watched I watched that stupid documentary that tried to kind of like reframe that shit. I watched like hate watch that documentary recently. When I see all these people on Twitter, they're like, oh, maybe the Pacers didn't, like, they were right after all. And I was like fuming. I was like watching them like, none of this is right. No, these dudes ran into the crowd and started punching fans. Wrong.
Right,
my dad was there, and not that far from where it happened. And of course, my dad like shrieked and ran.
Yeah. Well, but that's why, just to answer your question, that's why I've never been a Pacers fan. But you were mentioning Reggie Miller. I did love to watch Reggie Miller play.
Yeah, dude.
He almost converted me, but I didn't even really watch NBA basketball until I moved to Portland. And that's when I realized, when I started watching the Blazers, is when I realized, like, this is much better form of basketball than college, even though I still love watching college. And I still root for IU, and I'm really excited about our new coach and all that. But NBA basketball is just so much more pure art form, because I think what you're saying, Stephen, is really true, is that in the NBA, you just have such talent on such an incredible level that, when you get used to watching that level of talent, it's kind of hard to go back and see guys that are, not that much better than the guys I play on Wednesday nights with, And, but then again, I say that, and then we had a guy show up who played for USD, University of San Diego. This Russian guy showed up, and we were like, oh, he's back at the bench. Like, I recognize that guy, but he doesn't even play. And then the dude was dominating us, and we were like, okay, yeah, I'll shut up now. We are not even close to these people.
Yeah, I was gonna say, no, you're nowhere near close to
the
college players. Like, especially in the U.S. now,
that.
it's like one of the things kids don't understand when I say kids in my school, because I've helped out coaching the JV high school basketball team for a long time. And the kids were really good on varsity. Like, we've got these kids who are amazing players, and they're lucky if they get on Division III school. Like, it's it's hard to. Division I school, and then even like the separation from that to NBA, most people just don't get it, the sheer numbers involved. I don't know, like, totally. For the NBA, I would say briefly, for me, it goes in ebbs and flows, because, I'm definitely more drawn to sort of like team drama. I like the personal drama too, but, for me, the winning and losing is the draw. Like, so like in the NBA, in the years where it's like, well, who's going to win. I was interested. Like, I feel like now it's a lot more interesting because it's parity, and there could be, like last year, it was the Bucks and the Suns.
Totally.
When I think part of the reason why I have sort of a pathological dislike of Michael Jordan is because there was no, you knew it was going to be his team. There was no stopping it. Just wasn't as interesting to me. I like seeing teams overcome odds or players overcome odds. That's the stuff that makes me watch. I mean, don't get me wrong. I love a good highlight in the artistry, but I don't know. I like the story. I want the story of the team.
Yeah, and I'm not a LeBron hater, but all those years when it was just LeBron versus the Warriors every year.
I love that shit. You didn't like that?
Well, it's just I'm like what Paul says. I'd like to believe that other teams have a chance, and when you knew it,
but at
before the
least
season
with
started.
that, it was. I mean, when it was LeBron and when it was the Cavaliers and the Warriors, there was a question as to who would win. Like when it was the Bulls, it was like the Bulls were playing crap teams in the finals. It was never, including your Trailblazers, as much as I liked Jerome Kersey and Clyde Drexler. They really had no shot of winning. In those Bulls years. But anyway.
The current NBA is one of my favorite iterations we've ever seen, where it's like, I mean, Phoenix, Utah, Denver. I mean, these teams legitimately. I mean, the Bucks won, man. The freaking Bucks won it all, and it's what happened? And it's team ball. Like, can we please? Like, thank God the ISO era is over. Oh my God! And that
I don't know. Steven might be happy with.
Well, I mean,
the ISO, like Jordan, willingly or not, whatever, like ushered in what became sort of that isolation era. And that was I still watched all that shit. And I
guess you don't watch James Harden very much then.
No, my God. The Nets. I can't even talk about the Nets, man. And they're on right now. I was like watching them and I was like fuming. I'm like, oh God.
It's like James Harden is my least favorite modern player.
Man. It's like my dad says, he's like, I don't wish like anyone like to die or ill will, but couldn't one of them just roll their ankles?
He's the worst. He is absolutely the worst. And the I know that might appeal to Steven, the way he takes over games a little bit. So you may feel differently, but I just can't stand watching James Harden. And the fact that he allowed himself to get puffy so he'd get traded is like one of the most dastardly things. But one of my favorite things that Portland fans did, though, is we had God, what was the name of that guy? Felton, the point guard, Raymond Felton.
Raymond Felton,
yeah, he came to the Blazers and he did not like being there, and he knew he wasn't going to get a spot because Dame had just gotten drafted, and he allowed himself to get out of shape in order to force a trade.
Wow.
And so when he came back, and there was like times where he would show up with boxes of Voodoo Donuts, like to practice. And so one of my favorite things that Trailblazer fans ever did when he went to the Knicks and then came back the first time to play, instead of chanting defense every time Raymond Felton had the ball, they chanted donuts. And it was great. I just was so proud of the Trailblazer fans that they chanted donuts like every time he had the ball. It was great.
What did Steve Francis do? He went to, where was it, the Rockets, and he wasn't happy there, so he wouldn't play. Is that what happened?
I don't know the story with him, but
yeah, he was an amazing athlete, Steve Francis. Yeah. I wish he would have got his time, but he had too bad of an attitude,
TV franchise. He was amazing.
He was.
Yeah. Well, all right. So for the teams and the modern era, I will say for me, I did that. I will say that LeBron championship where he came back from the 3-1 deficit was amazing. The fact that it had that crazy block to make it happen, the heroics. I have a nephew who grew up in Oakland, and he's the most obnoxious Warriors fan on the planet. And so that 3-1 come from behind victory will forever, help me with him. But with this era and what's going, or what we have with modern basketball, do you have for starting with Josh, I know you're a Pistons fan, but do you have other teams that you're just like that your favorite teams that you try to catch watching them play whenever they're on?
I mean, yeah, again, it started last year. I felt something shift last year where it felt like the LeBron James era was over, and it just felt like the league got younger, more. And James is a great passer. He's a team player, but it felt like the game feels different now than it did like a few years ago to watch, or even 2 years ago. And so for me, I mean, I like the Suns, the Jazz, I like the Warriors. I want to watch the Lakers. The Pistons have been terrible, dude, for like almost 20 years. And so that's a long time of as a Lions fan, also like I'm very used to like, who else is out there? Like, what else is going on?
Who else?
Like, so yeah. So I mean, a lot of teams, and then a few that I can't stomach the Nets at all. But I like the Celtics. I love Tatum. I mean, honestly, I just like the game right now.
Mm-hmm. Paul, do you have other? I mean, you're a Celtics fan, but do you have other teams that you consider must watch?
Yeah, I mean, usually only like until the playoffs. Will I watch other teams, and it's usually to hate watch, or not hate watch, but to root against. Yeah, I'm always rooting for an underdog story. So if I don't have any sort of rooting interest in the game, I'm rooting for the lower seed or the underdog. Which is kind of, I don't know, maybe that's just the old sort of New England typical existence, is to always root for the team that's probably going to lose. I think in some way there's some enjoyment, like, they lost and I'm pissed, but there was some value and I chose the right side kind of thing. Yeah, although that said, like when it was the Suns and the Bucks, it was really like, oh, I'm just interested to see what happens. Like I really wasn't rooting for one team or the other, because I was rooting for both of them to sort of make it. And then after that, it was like, yeah, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. How about Steven?
I've never really like been behind a team. I guess right now the team that I always want to watch is the Grizzlies, because John Morant. I just don't know what he's gonna do with the ball. Yeah, that guy, he just is so creative, and he can just jump through the ceiling. That dude can move.
So good, man. Yeah,
he is amazing. I mean, he's not like Allen Iverson. Allen Iverson was the only Allen Iverson, I think, but he's doing something different in the same area, and it just blows me away. Yeah, like in the finals last year, I was rooting for the Suns because I like Devin Booker. I like the way he moves, and I like how he seems to be. I mean, it's like a fatherly thing to say, but he seems to be learning stuff, like how to be on the court in a way that is productive for his team, and but I like when the coach says, you're scoring, and he goes out there and does something. I really appreciate
he's
that.
incredible. And I like Ayton also, man. It's like the big man game is a bit rare these days. So a dude like that is so exciting.
It is.
Well, it sounds like the Suns pissed him off by they paid other players and they didn't give him a contract. So Aiden might be going elsewhere after this year.
Wow.
Detroit. That's too bad. Maybe Detroit, just saying.
Detroit.
For me, the player that I love watching outside of my team, outside of the Blazers, is I love Donovan Mitchell. I wish Donovan Mitchell was a Trailblazer so badly. As much as I love CJ McCollum, I would trade him for Donovan Mitchell in a heartbeat.
Oh yeah.
Donovan Mitchell, I just love watching his game. Like I could watch him all day. So I was kind of rooting for the Jazz, even though they're like in the West a little bit along the way. And then when it came to the finals, I was rooting for the Bucks because I really wanted to see Giannis get it. And but I was happy with the Suns being there. It's just my only problem with the Suns is I am not a Chris Paul fan. The two players that I really dislike in the NBA are James Harden and Chris Paul. I cannot stand either of them on the court. Chris Paul off the court, whatever, he's fine. But on the court, he just annoys the shit out of me. He's one of the biggest floppers on the earth. And when he was a Clipper, he used to flop on the Blazers so much, it just drove me insane. Him and Blake Griffin, when they were together with the Clippers, was just the worst flop show in the history of the league. It was terrible, and I will forever dislike them for that.
I think James Harden, that beard he keeps, I think that's so that exaggerates him faking like he got hit so he can throw his head up, and this whole like this all moves and it makes it look dramatic to the refs, and they call it foul. Yeah.
Well, and I got to give it to you, Steven, for bringing out John Morant, because he would not have been where I'd gone, but you're right. He is a really fun and exciting player to watch.
Totally.
But all right, so let's because I don't want to keep you guys too much longer, because for no other reason that I want you guys working all the time, because I love reading your book. So the NBA season, let's start in the East. Paul, you said you had opinions, that you actually took notes.
Oh, yeah.
So let's hear what you've got cooking for this NBA season. What are you looking forward to?
Yeah, nothing too crazy. I mean, the Nets are always a good hate sort of watch. We'll see how that soap opera works out. See if Kyrie plays at all this year. I'm going to guess that he does not. Although I think them picking up Patty Mills, that's someone I would have liked on the Celtics. They need a point guard that can shoot. and they do not have one.
He was 5 for 5 starting tonight. That's his first
Yeah.
5 threes. So
The Bucks get Dante DiVincenzo back as a shooter. He was hurt in the finals last year, so I think it's always hard to win 2 in a row. But I think they're dangerous with him. The Heat actually loaded up right with Lowry. They took PJ Tucker from the
huge move.
Took PJ Tucker from the Bucks, and they have one of the Morrises. I think it's Markeith, or I can't remember which one it is. I don't know. The other hate watch team for me is the 76ers. They're so dysfunctional. Already they've suspended Ben Simmons for a game.
Yeah.
I think it's going to come. There's going to be a game where like Ben Simmons and Embiid actually start throwing punches at each other during the game. And my Celtics, I mean, I like the new coach hire, but I just don't know if they have enough talent.
Wait, who is it?
Ime Udoka. He was an assistant
guy
on the Nets. Most recently, he was an assistant on the Nets, but I think he started with Greg Popovich. He built a relationship prior to this year with some of the Celtics because of USA Basketball. Like that's where why am I spacing on his name? Tatum, where Tatum first met him. So I don't know. We'll see.
Yeah, I'm a Brad Stevens fan, going back to him coaching at Butler, because Butler's my number 2 college team, being from Indiana, and I think Brad Stevens running the show without having to be on the floor is going to be huge for the Celtics personally, because I think his basketball mind will actually still be very much into the development of the team, which I think is great.
I don't know. I mean, he's never really had to pick the players. I mean, I think it's 2 totally different jobs. I think
you know better than me, because you're a Celtics fan.
The team had totally tuned him out. Like it was time for a change. I don't know. It was weird that they kicked him up into the front office. I was actually kind of surprised that I thought it might have been just like a for show thing. And then like they would trade him to another team that wanted to coach, but it didn't happen. And he's actually been signing people. So we'll see how it goes.
I believe your coach grew up in Portland. Or he has some kind of Portland connection, and because I know a lot of Portland people were pissed we didn't get him as a coach at first. But then I think people kind of cooled on our choice. But yeah. Josh, you got any big thoughts about going into?
Yeah, sure. In the interest of time, I think it's the Jazz's time out west. I love Mitchell. I love Rudy Gobert. I love him. God, I wish he was a Piston. And they were close the last couple of years, a couple of key injuries. I think, God, I sound like a talking head right now. I think the Jazz do it, man. I think the Jazz make the final. I actually think they win it. And out east, God, I don't want to fucking say who I think is going to win it. So I'm not going to, and I'm going to say the Bucks, because Giannis really, really is special. And I go through all the teams, and you're like, oh, maybe is there a sleeper hit here, that kind of thing. No, Philly's dysfunctional. The Knicks aren't ready. The Celtics are probably closer this year than they were last year. I think it's the Bucks again. So Bucks and Jazz win it.
The Bucks, despite their coach.
You don't like him?
No, I don't.
Do you have picks, Paul, for East and West?
No, I'm gonna say the Bucks because I don't want to say the Nets too. I think it's gonna be Bucks Lakers. Although I mean, I do think there's a chance that these Lakers are like the Lakers that your Pistons beat.
Yep.
Your Billups Pistons beat. Decrepit, all these old dudes, like aside from LeBron, but Russell Westbrook's getting up there, Rondo, Carmelo Anthony, Dwight Howard. It's like, man, all these dudes were like,
it's a 2012 All-Star team for sure. I think the Lakers are going to be toast with injuries personally, and I'm more afraid of I'm afraid of the Jazz being the Jazz's year, because my team's in the West, and obviously I would like to think Dame could carry our team, and I'd like to think Billups could change everything. I think we might get a series this year in the playoffs, but I don't think we're going to go further than that. And I think next year, I think the next 2 years though are going to be Damian Lillard on cheat code. I think he is going to get 4 60-point games this year. I think we're going to see more action between him and Nurkic this year. It's going to be a big deal.
Yeah, I like Nurkic.
And I think people are going to sleep on the fact that Larry Nance Jr. is going to be a huge deal for the Blazers on the defensive end. And last year, Rocco was not fully healthy. He needed surgery for his nose. And I think that hurt him on shooting. So I think he's going to be better this year. But I think the Blazers are going to start slow and then get hot. So my prediction is start slow, get hot. Steven, I know you don't really follow teams, so I don't know how you're gonna. If you have any feelings for this year,
if I had hopes, I would hope for the Blazers to go far because I just love to watch Dame play. It's amazing when he's on like nobody else. When is Klay Thompson back? I'm ready for him to be back.
I think he's back. I think he's playing
back. Yeah.
All right. Oh,
yeah,
well, then
he's playing tonight,
man.
All right. Well, I'm gonna put all my money on the Warriors then on the outside shot, man.
Nice.
Yeah, I like that. I like your picks, man. Hey, real fast, Steven. I know that you probably got to like scramble. I just want to say a couple things real fast. So Nuggets don't interest you? You're not like as a Colorado dude, you don't.
When Murray was there, I really liked them. Otherwise, I think they're just not fun to watch. Like they do wonderful things, but there's not exciting to watch, man. But when Jamal Murray is there, that guy is dynamic. I like that
for sure.
Yeah.
I like Jokic. He's like a fundamental like square player. And the last
I can't stand him. He's the third one I don't like.
I just want to ask this question of Steven because I feel like maybe you're the only one here that has this. So as a player, do you have a low post game? For some reason, when I say I made the team, I got to qualify that by saying I went to a 2A and sometimes a 3A school. So I was a tall guy. Being 6'3", I was tall, and so that's why I never developed an outside shot because if you're over 6 feet, you have to bang around under the basket. And so I could bang around. I was always getting rebounding awards and stuff. I was a really good rebounder. I'm really a trash player. I just pick up trash and sometimes get lucky. I never had any skill, any strategy, but I could jump and I could run forever. Dude, Allison is my girl. Allison is like that, like infuriating to play with. Every loose ball, every rebound, every scrappy play, every like knocks the ball in your hand. You're just like, no, man.
Yeah.
All right, so we're gonna wrap things up, but because we have a time limitation. However, I do want to say one of the things, the last time Josh and I talked about it, you and I, Josh, made a date that next time you're here for Comic-Con, we're going shooting. We're gonna have a 3-point contest. And anytime you guys are in San Diego, I got 2 basketball courts on each side of me here near the beach. More than welcome to come shoot up with me. I know we'd have to get Steven a new knee to play a game of 21, but
I'm on a cane today, man.
Oh man. It's hard for me to say now. Like I wouldn't lose that 3-point contest. By the way, I would bet my house.
Dude, Dude, hold on.
Well, I was talking to me and David. I've seen Josh shoot. I know Josh can shoot a little bit. I still think I still feel confident that if we were to play like a best 4 out of 7, I would take 4 out of 7.
What about a video of 100 straight shots? The best you can do out of 3. When we say 3, we're talking like fucking high school, whatever the line.
Yeah. Oh no. Like my record is 27 college threes in a row.
Whoa. Really?
Holy shit.
Yeah.
That's a lot.
My record is 72 of 100. That's pretty good.
That is very good. Yeah.
That's not 27 in a row though. Is like you're talking like 85, 90.
That was a long time ago as well.
Well, within this year, I hit 75 out of 150 going around the rim.
That's pretty good too. That's not as good as what we're saying, but that's pretty good.
Yeah. No. Yeah.
I don't know if I could. Yeah. Hey, Tremblay sounds like he can shoot. All right. So before we go, just everybody tell them where if somebody's new. If they came because they wanted a basketball opinion and they were like, hey, I need a horror novel. Listen, all 3 of you guys put out fucking amazing. I just want to say, put out amazing books in 2020.
Thank you.
Seriously, really great books. All 3. And so it's just really fucking fun for me to talk basketball with you guys. But Josh, tell them where people can find your work.
I mean, wherever books are sold. And then I'm the only Josh Malerman I know of in the world. So that's my name everywhere. Josh Malerman with 1 L, not 2. Don't make the same mistake that like my teachers have made. And cheers to this amazing session, by the way.
I know. Now that it's almost over, we can laugh about the fact that people are going to be really, really mad that we didn't do
Oh no.
your favorite slasher films. But maybe we'll do that another time. Paul Tremblay, where can people find your work?
Yeah, similar to Josh, you can find my books where they are sold. Although unsimilar to Josh, there are actually quite a few other Paul Tremblays out there, including there's a French Canadian Paul Tremblay who's a CrossFit champion. There was once a tweet, like a picture of him like ripped doing something. It said Paul Tremblay ass man, because he won like the squatting championship. And I once got a Facebook invite to Iceland for like a strongman competition. It was like, hey, we'll fly you over. It'd be awesome. Lift things up, put them down. And I was like, man, I should totally. No, I did. I said, sorry, I think you're talking to the wrong guy. Like that would have been hard to pull off if I showed up. Hey. Anyway, buy my books. Don't buy my CrossFit tapes.
And the author of Don't Fear the Reaper just announced today. Stephen Graham Jones. Tell them where you can find your work.
Yeah, like everywhere that books are sold, like alongside these two dudes, probably. Let me think. I guess I'm between them in the alphabet. No, I'm first in the alphabet. I can't do the alphabet very well.
Oh yeah.
But there is another Stephen Jones. Sometimes people bring me his anthologies to sign in horror conventions, and I haven't signed any of them yet, but I should just start doing it. I guess.
That's true. And I will say that if people are pissed off that we only talked about basketball, all three of these men have been on my podcast before and talked about their wonderful horror stuff. So you can go back and find those episodes. Stop your whining. Basketball's fun. Get into the sport. It's really cool. And if you don't like watching, at least go out and try shooting, because it's really great exercise.
I'm making that video. I'm shooting 100, and then you guys gotta do it or top whatever I do. I'm gonna make it though. I'm making that video. I'm gonna shoot no editing, no deep fakes. No. Just one little phone camera. I'm shooting 100, and then you guys do what you want with it.
100 from where? You gonna do a mic and drill? 100 layups, left, right.
The back. I'm gonna do 100 threes.
100 threes. All right. Well, we might have a challenge laid down. We might have to see how that turns out. Everybody, thanks for joining me tonight, and enjoy the NBA season. And maybe someday we'll get back together and actually talk about horror. But I had a really great time tonight. Thanks.
All right, thanks.
Bye.